The Cracked article was initially titled "5 Ways Hollywood Tricked You into Hating Poor People," but switched to a new title of 5 Insane Things You Believe About Money Thanks to Movies. It's a countdown list talking about the way that poverty is portrayed in TV and film.
Number 5, even apocalyptic poverty isn't that bad. And they cite like Elysium and Dread and God, what was the other one?
The Matrix.
Matrix, where they talk about the accommodations for these incredibly poor people. And in New York, you would pay quite a lot to get something of that quality. Poor people can't afford to live that well, in most places, and it doesn't really look that bad. Number 4, they even cited Pretty in Pink, the 2-story, what do they say? Spacious 2-story home in the suburbs with a manicured lawn, and she got her own working car at age 16. So yeah, poverty is really relative in the movies. It's amazing. And it says, but here's the thing. Hollywood's heightened reality is supposed to work in the other direction, too. Fictional horrors are supposed to be more horrifying than the real thing. But when Hollywood tries to portray the worst of the worst poverty, the kind you can only get in a post-apocalyptic future, the worst they can think of is an 800-square-foot, 2-bedroom apartment with some smudges on the walls. It's funny. Number 4, financial wounds always heal. And they talk about the kind of destructive things, breaking a window or gouging the wall or destroying a bunch of property. And then it's just pretty much, meh, it's dealt with. You never see the effects. You never see the boarded up window for 6 months. Or in our case, with last time we had a broken window, it was 2 years before we got it fixed. 2 years, no window in your house. That's how people live. People really live like that. Number 3, you can live in a comfortable life with a menial, low-skilled job. And this is a great picture of Rachel from Friends slinging coffee at the Perk, Central Perk, and how they get to do all these things like, go around and have exotic destination weddings. They talk about Sherlock and the sort of consulting practice. These guys had to go in together to live in the apartment, but they get to have $2,000 trench coats, and everybody has a fancy wedding when they get married and whatnot. It's just, again, creating unrealistic expectations in people of what poverty looks like or what hard times look like. Number 2, you can always travel if you really need to. Things like from Breaking Bad, the terrible car that Hollywood showed that Walter White had. And everybody's got a real bad car, but it always works. It never breaks down. You never see them walking anywhere. You never see them taking a bus, because it just doesn't happen. Meanwhile, we spent hundreds to get, a couple thousand to get our transmission fixed in one of our cars. It lasted 5 days. It's back in the shop. That's what real life is.
And it's not just the cost to repair the car, it's the cost of the trips that you don't get to take, the stuff that you can't do while one car is in the shop, or while your car is in the shop.
And the final thing was, things can only get so bad no matter how irresponsible you are. And so all these poor life choices that people make in movies, it's just sort of magically glossed over. People, come up with these schemes to try to make money. They don't lose themselves, lose their shirts doing it. It's just, that didn't work out, we'll go that. Or if you get into a really bad medical situation, your medical bills in Hollywood, they never bankrupt you. It just sort of, you have a really bad time and you sit on the couch and you hope that you can, go back to work in a few weeks. People can't live like that.
Well, and don't you think that this is where a lot of the whole we deserve a living wage, $15 minimum wage kind of thing comes from? because that we have, as a society, bought into these false ideas?
I don't know. I mean, I think that we're talking about two different people. I think there's the people who actually have lived through this, who have lived through poverty, and the people who haven't, but I don't know, maybe are thinking that they're going to slip into it. I'm not entirely sure. It's kind of it just doesn't feel like the same people that are on these issues. They go through a lot of different things about show the way that really harsh levels of poverty are displayed on TV and movies. It's fiction. It doesn't actually show the realities of living in poverty, and even to some extent living in middle class. And that's the thing that was really, to me, was interesting about the article, was that I was reading it and I'm like, I've been in the middle class my entire life. A lot of these things hold true for the middle class now.
Well, and the other article from USA Today was about 7 things that the middle class can't afford. This was interesting because I was sitting here thinking in my head how long it had been since we had had the opportunity to deal with any of these things. Vacations are more and more rare for people these days, and people are more likely to put off vacations and deal with other things, especially if there's a mini financial crisis. New vehicles, fewer people in this country can buy a vehicle straight off lot without a previous owner. But then what did we do? Cash for clunkers, which took so many of the used cars off the market. That's great. A lot of people can't afford to pay off debt. Yeah, ask me how I know about that one. It's tough. A lot of people can't afford to have emergency savings or retirement savings. Those are luxuries.
What are those things? I mean,
right.
You have when you're dealing with the economy the way that it is right now, and talk about all the people who are unemployed. It's gone. That's done. I mean, that's ridiculous.
And on top of that, medical care and dental care. Again, those can be, even with insurance, those can be very disruptive events in somebody's life. We talked last year about Ryan and his insurance story and the difficulty they've had. Imagine having to put that many thousands of dollars a year into healthcare that you have to put in there. And if anything goes wrong, if any of the cards that you have built this financial structure on is the least bit slippery or bent, the whole thing comes tumbling down.
Everyone, literally everyone in the administration knew that she was not using a government email account because they were emailing and receiving emails to and from her personal account.
Obviously.
So Obama knew, like everyone knew. They're all complicit in it.